Hey, what's up guys? So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the MPH B3 radar gun. Now the B3, this is the main radar gun that I see in use here in Washington State by the Washington State Patrol. It is a dash mount unit that's available in both K-band and in Ka band. If it's Ka, it transmits at 33.8. It's got a nice compact counting unit that fits nicely on your dash, as well as a bright LED display that's easy to read even in direct sunlight. It comes with a wireless remote like this to let you control the radar unit, so everything is going to be done here, including activating pop mode, which is kind of the party trick here available with the B3 that we'll talk about here toward the end of the video. All right, so starting off, to get familiar with the B3, we'll go ahead and power it up here like this by pressing the power button on the side of the display. And you'll notice it's just going to go ahead and boot itself up. Goes through its self-test process, and then we're up and running. Now, we've got a number of different windows here on the display. We've got our primary target speed, our fastest target speed, our directional indicators, as well as our patrol speed for moving mode operation. Most all of the controls themselves will actually be right here on the remote. You'll notice the B3, all it has is a power button. There's no additional buttons on the display, so most all the controls are going to be right here. The top half of the remote are going to be the main things that you use while you're driving, while the bottom half is going to be for like adjusting menu settings and options and whatnot. Now, as far as the buttons here, we've got buttons to transmit with the front antenna like this, as well as the rear antenna if we like. If we want to put the gun back into standby and stop transmitting, we just press the button there in the middle. It also makes it really easy to choose which direction of travel we want to monitor, so maybe only vehicles traveling in the same lane as us or vehicles traveling in the opposite lane. If we want to lock any speeds, we can do it right there with the lock button, and then we also have a button to quickly turn on and off our fastest mode capabilities like this. Then the bottom half of the remote, again, that's going to be for, adjusting your different menu options. So if you want to adjust the volume of the audio Doppler, for example, you do that right there. You've got the ability to maybe switch between moving mode and stationary mode operation right there. We've got our self-test function. We can blank the patrol speed if we run into some errors in moving mode operation, for example. There's also things like the second function activates some of the blue things. Whoops, let's press it again. So for example, our VASCAR operation, our stopwatch, we've got that built in here too. You've also got things like a backlight button here on the remote to make it glow, makes it a little bit easier to see at night. And then, of course, for pop mode, it makes it super easy to switch into pop mode just with the press of a button like that. Boom, we're in pop mode, and now we can go ahead and start shooting our pop shots like this as we desire. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at the B3 in action. We'll start here in stationary mode, parked here on the side of the road. So if we want to go ahead and start monitoring vehicle speeds like that car up ahead, we just tell it to go ahead and start transmitting, and then we'll see the speed right there will pop up on the display. Now, it's able to also monitor multiple vehicles if we like. By default, it's only going to be doing the primary target, the strongest target, which is going to be the typically closest car like that, the biggest, strongest reflection. If we want, we can also activate fastest mode here, which is going to allow us to monitor multiple vehicles when they pop up. So maybe the, again, biggest, strongest target there, and then if there's another car maybe a little bit farther away that's traveling faster, that's going to show up here on the fastest target. It's also going to be giving us both directions of travel. So right now, we've got vehicles coming up ahead, and you'll see in a second it's going to go ahead and switch to monitor vehicles traveling in the other direction too. If we want, we can narrow it down and only do one direction of travel. So if we want, we can do maybe cars coming towards us like this, or we can switch and only do vehicles moving away like that. So we've got controls over directional information. You're also right now listening to the audio Doppler, which is the sound that kind of correlates to what the radar detector is seeing. That helps give you additional information with what's going on with the radar gun. Plus, you can also hear kind of the quality of the audio Doppler to let you know if you have a good lock. So while you're driving, you can both look at the display and also hear the sounds in addition to looking at the vehicles up ahead. And all of that is going to work together to give you a better idea of what's going on with other vehicle speeds. Then something to mention as far as directional information. As you saw here in stationary mode, we can monitor both directions of travel, either individually or both directions simultaneously, right? We can also monitor vehicles either up ahead or back behind, but not both ends of the car at the same time, either just the front or the rear. But whichever direction we're using, we can actually monitor both directions of travel simultaneously, which is pretty cool. On the other hand, if you're using the gun in moving mode, you can only do maybe same lane operation or opposite lane, but you can't actually do both directions simultaneously. Now, I've been running the B3 here for the past couple weeks or so, and for a few weeks before that, I was actually running the MPH Ranger Easy, another model here from the same manufacturer. I did a video about that one recently, and the main thing that I've noticed, kind of switching from one radar gun to the other, of course, the B3 doesn't have the distance information. It's speed measurement only. It was a little bit weird, and I definitely did find myself missing that initially, but the more I used the B3, the more I found that, sure, you're still able to monitor different vehicles just like before. And so it only took maybe 2-3 days or so, but I found myself getting used to the B3 pretty quick, even without the distance information. I also found the B3 does a better job of actually locking onto vehicles at a distance. The Ranger kind of struggled with longer distance capturing, whereas the B3 does a better job at closer range and at longer range. That said, another difference that I notice is I wind up kind of using the B3 at closer range, despite its better job of acquiring vehicles at a distance, without the additional distance information. And so I'm usually kind of monitoring vehicles that are a little bit closer to me than I find myself doing with the Ranger. And this is especially true in moving mode when you've got a lot of cars on the road, so let's go ahead and start taking a look at moving mode next. So starting off with moving mode here, let's begin by talking about opposite lane monitoring. So for example, here's one where I'm passing a car that I picked up doing about 37 miles an hour. Then the primary target becomes the next car behind it, which turns out to be a sheriff doing just over 50. Then I pass that vehicle and pick up the next one, which is also a sheriff doing closer to 40. Now, when there's more cars on the road, that's when the fastest target information also becomes useful. For example, here I am driving down the road, and you'll see the primary target is a car doing about 30. Then the fastest target is around 40-ish or so. You'll see that I'll pass the first car, and then the fastest target switches over and becomes the primary strongest target. That extra information, seeing the fastest target, is pretty useful. It allows me to monitor kind of multiple vehicles, especially a faster vehicle that's not necessarily the closest, biggest, strongest reflection. Here's a similar idea with a little bit more traffic. The primary target is doing 41. The fastest target is doing 63. You'll see here then when I pass the white SUV on the left, the strongest target then becomes this beige SUV. Additionally, the audio Doppler is really useful in this situation to let me know when I pass the first car and the primary target switches over to another vehicle that's traveling faster. I'll replay that clip real quick, and you can tell pretty easily when the audio Doppler suddenly ramps up in pitch and then it switches over. And so with the B3, the audio Doppler is always going to be referring to the primary strongest target. And again, the audio Doppler is supposed to correlate with what speed the radar gun is displaying, as well as what the officers are visually seeing on the road. All of these radar guns are designed to be used to verify and confirm what the officers can see with visual estimation. They see, oh, this car is doing, I think, 63 miles an hour. Let me just confirm that with my radar gun. That's how it's supposed to be used here. Radar guns are not supposed to replace visual estimation. So just a quick note about radar gun operation. And one of the reasons that's important is because, especially when you have a lot of cars on the road, it can be kind of tougher to tell which vehicle is driving faster. So again, you're supposed to actually look and be able to see that. For example, here's a clip where you see there's two vehicles going side by side, and it can be tough to tell which car is looking faster. And so you just need to look at the cars and then confirm that with your radar gun. Here's another clip, for example, with two more targets. You'll see one is the strongest target, another one is the fastest. And then as we get closer, you'll see that the red car is driving faster than the SUV. And so in this situation, it's the SUV that's the strongest target doing 40, and the red car is the fastest target doing 45. Now, this fastest mode capability is also useful on the highway, especially if you've got a bunch of cars on the road. For example, here's a clip where I'm driving down the highway, and you'll see the fastest target pops up going well over 80 miles an hour. Now, I'm going to wait a little bit to see who that vehicle is, and then you'll see that it's this SUV here driving faster than everybody else. And so in many situations, it can be fairly straightforward to pick out different cars in traffic, but that said, sometimes it's very tough, if not impossible. So that's where actually looking, and visually estimating comes into play, because with radar, especially much more so than laser, it can be tough to identify which car you're actually targeting, especially in heavier traffic. That said, I find that the more I run radar guns here, it becomes a little bit easier for me, but of course I can't do it in every situation. And speaking of running radar, it's amazing to find how many people are just flying past me and aren't running radar detectors at all. They just speed right past me here, like this red car, for example. And so even with just constant on radar, it's very easy to find people that are speeding. There's a lot of people who just don't run radar detectors. Anyways, next let's talk about a same lane operation. You can just activate that by switching from opposite lane to same lane here with the press of the remote. Then when running the B3 in same lane, it's going to allow us to clock vehicles traveling in the same direction as us, like this CTSV up ahead of me, the black car that's driving in the same direction as me. You'll see it actually driving away, doing 62 in a 45 in front of me. And here's another clip where I'm pulling up to an intersection and there's this white truck which goes surprisingly quick through this intersection in front of me. I pull out behind him and then I switch the B3 over into same lane operation and I find that he's doing 56 in a 35. And then for another example, here's one instead of on city roads, driving on the highway. Now, highway, again, can be trickier with more cars on the road, but if we freeze frame this clip here, you'll see that my speed is 57, which is the same as the car directly in front of me. There's a slower car to my right that's doing 52, and the fastest target is this white Tesla in the HOV lane doing 65. Now, something important to note about same lane operation is it's more difficult for radar guns to operate in same lane than in opposite lane. This seems to be true of pretty much every radar gun, and it's also true here for the B3. There's a number of interesting quirks here that we can quickly talk about. For example, when you're running in same lane, the radar gun is not able to display the speeds of any vehicles that are traveling at the same speed as you. They have to be more than plus minus 3 miles an hour in order for the speed to show up on the radar gun. So if you want to see the speed of some vehicles, you may actually have to speed up or slow down to create a bigger speed difference and have those vehicle speeds actually show up here on your B3. Additionally, MPH has also reduced the range when you're running the gun in same lane. This is designed intentionally to help avoid picking up cars that are too far away. That way you're more picking up cars closer to you and directly up ahead. Additionally, the audio Doppler, it's weird here when you're running in same lane. I find it to be much more intuitive and natural when running in opposite lane. When you're running in opposite lane, the faster the target is going, the higher the audio, the pitch. The more the car then starts to slow down, the lower the pitch. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. That's not the way it works here in same lane. In same lane, the audio is actually going to be affected by both their speed and your speed, and them driving faster or driving slower can cause the Doppler to go up. It sounds kind of weird, but what they're looking at is not so much the speed of the target, but rather the difference in speed between your speed and the target speed. So if it's two cars driving at the same speed, you'll get a lower pitch. If then they start to speed up or they slow down, there's a bigger difference in speed. That difference is going to be indicated by a higher pitch. So to be a little bit more specific, for example, let's say you're following a car and that car starts to speed up. That will cause the Doppler to go up. If then you're following another car and that car starts to slow down, because that's going to create a bigger difference in speed between your two vehicles, the Doppler is going to go up instead of down, even though they're slowing down. Additionally, if you start to drive faster toward another car, again, we've got a bigger difference in speed, and so your Doppler is going to go up, which is your speed, not their speed changing. So kind of weird here. To make it a little bit easier, let me actually show you a quick clip to demo this. You'll see that I'm following a car as we start approaching a red light. You'll see that the car in front of me is going to start to slow down coming to the red light, and they're slowing down, which is going to cause the audio Doppler pitch to go up. And then as I start to slow down and better match their speed, you'll see the audio Doppler's pitch starts to go down. So I know this is a little bit weird. I'm finding it takes me a while to kind of wrap my head around it. But again, basically what it's doing here is the Doppler, it's kind of paying attention to the difference in speed. So you're looking, higher pitch is going to correlate to cars that are either driving way faster than you or way slower. If the car is driving at a similar speed, you'll get a lower pitch in the audio Doppler, which again is different than a stationary mode or moving mode opposite lane, to where faster cars are going higher pitch, slower cars are going lower pitch. So just a little quirk here to talk about with same lane operation. And because of that and some of the other things, I generally prefer operating the B3 in opposite direction instead of same lane. I find it just works better, it does a better job of acquiring speeds, and the audio Doppler is just more natural. And then with moving mode in general for both directions, I find the B3 tends to be more susceptible to incorrect speeds, especially showing things like maybe shadowing or combining errors. For example, especially at lower speeds when it's initially acquiring a lock, sometimes you'll get combining errors to where the patrol speed is mistaken because it's reading reflections off of another vehicle up ahead instead of maybe the world around you. And so the patrol speed may be about twice as high as it should be. That said, the gun will eventually kind of correct itself and figure it out, but that's just kind of one of the errors that you'll sometimes see here when operating the B3, or a lot of other radar guns are susceptible to these errors too. Finally, let's go ahead and talk about pop mode. Now, pop mode is a really brief burst of radar that's designed to allow you to preview vehicle speeds, theoretically without alerting other radar detector users up ahead. The way that it works, I mean, there's other radar guns that have built-in quick trigger capabilities, things like the Stalker DSR-2X or the Detector Genesis 2. Those have built-in half-second quick trigger shots. Pop is going to be much faster. It's less than 1/10 of a second. It's actually only 67 milliseconds. And the idea here is it's going to allow you to just shoot these quick bursts of radar like this, these quick pop shots, so that you can preview vehicle speeds up ahead. Again, in theory, they're supposed to be so fast that they don't alert different radar detector users. That was true when pop mode first came out, but since then, many years ago, radar detector manufacturers have adapted, and all of the top tier detectors can alert to pop mode just fine. Now, to use pop mode here on the B3, the way that it works is you've got the remote, and you can just press this pop button right here, and it activates pop mode. So really easy to activate. And then if you want to start previewing speeds, you just choose, front or rear, and you just start transmitting like that, and then you'll see the speed will display right here on screen for about 2 seconds or so, and then it disappears. This way you can stay in pop mode and continue shooting pop shots. Then the idea is if you see maybe a car that you really want to target, maybe they're speeding, you just press the button again, and then it switches over to normal radar operation like this. To give you another real world example, here's one where I shoot a quick pop shot and I see the first car is doing 40. And then I shoot another shot and I see the next car is doing 53. So I switch over to regular radar and I see that he's doing maybe 54 to 55. And this is how pop is intended to be used. It's designed to be used to preview vehicle speeds. And then if you see somebody that you want to target, you then switch over to normal radar operation. Officers are not supposed to use pop alone to issue tickets. They're supposed to use it to preview vehicle speeds and then switch over to normal radar to get the audio Doppler, to get your tracking history, etc. And it's especially important for the tracking history. It's important because pop itself does have some reported accuracy issues with shooting the shot so quickly that it doesn't give the gun diode in the antenna enough time to sufficiently heat up to stabilize and get an accurate speed. And so pop's accuracy may not be spot on correct. And so for a variety of reasons, it's not allowed to be used in court to issue tickets. But officers are allowed to use it to preview vehicle speeds if they want, and then switch over to normal radar operation. I know that some departments don't want their officers running pop at all due to various reasons, but that's at least how it works here from a technical perspective. And then practically speaking, as radar detector users, most of us just wind up turning off pop mode altogether on our radar detectors, even though detectors can alert to it just fine. The reason is most officers don't really use this in practice. It's just not very widespread. And so a lot of us just wind up turning off pop detection altogether just to help avoid maybe some of the false alerts that we may experience by running with pop mode turned on. So it's kind of a cool capability, I suppose, but it's not really something that you'll encounter much in practice, especially because of a lot of the different technical issues or legal restrictions and things like that that officers are going to run into. And so, yeah, that's just a quick look here with pop mode operation. And other than that, yeah, that's a quick look at, well, the MPH B3 in general. Pretty straightforward radar gun. It's MPH's flagship here. So with all the, strongest, fastest mode capabilities, stationary moving mode, pop capabilities, all that stuff, all built into the B3. And so I guess that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you want, you can click the button on screen to check out the playlist with all of the different police radar guns that I've taken a look at and reviewed here like this. So awesome. Thanks so much. Hope you're doing well, and I'll see you in the next video.